I am so excited to really just connect with you all today and talk about how we can just adapt and thrive in this ever changing ecosystem that is the digital marketing world. And so, I don't know how many of you guys have heard of us before. If you have, give me your favorite emoji in the chat. I'm going to be asking you guys to interact quite a bit here. If it's your first event with us, welcome. If you guys have come to our summit, welcome back. If you come to our monthly webinars that our marketing team puts on, welcome back as well. But it's so fun to see familiar faces in the chat. It's so cool to see everyone representing all different types of organizations from Buffalo, New York to Virginia, all the way down to Minnesota. Keep posting where you guys are going. And I don't know if we have a manatee emoji, but we'll have to find one, Jared, if there isn't one. But keep on posting where you guys are from. And so, just to give a little background about myself, I'm really the director of partnerships here. And my goal is to help nonprofits think of strategies to help you guys thrive. And some fun facts about me: I'm one of 7 children. So, I feel like I grew up in a very loving and chaotic household at the same time. And I also am a certified nonprofit professional. I got my credentials over 5 years ago. So I've always been in the nonprofit space and will always be in the nonprofit space. And I personally supported over 200 strategies with nonprofits that now work with us, and really understanding where they're at and where they're trying to go and really trying to work within their budgets. And hopefully you guys will get a lot from today. And another fun fact is I'm an incoming Spanish speaker. I'm almost there. There's so many hurdles around learning Spanish. If you guys are someone that has tried to learn a language before, please let me know. But either way, I just want to kind of kick it off with just having an open and honest conversation today. I'm going to be asking you guys to give your thoughts, give your reactions to what I'm talking about, and really just walk away with being down to earth of where we're kind of at as nonprofits, where we're at with a weird economy right now, and really thinking about how we can adapt and thrive. I'm actually pulling in one of my favorite TEDx talks, and thinking about kind of the 7-step program I kind of designed, I guess, just looking at the leading nonprofits and what are they doing, and really thinking about what it means to be a thriving nonprofit. And so, as we jump into today, I'm just really curious as to how we can adapt and thrive. And I want us to keep this in our mind, because somehow it is June 1st, 2023. I don't know how it's June, but I know it's a short week too. But we have 6 months left of the year, which is pretty wild to think about. So there's still so much time for us to adapt and thrive, and of course, look into the new year. And so I actually want to kick us off with one of my favorite TEDx talks. It was done back in 2013. The way we talk about charity is dead wrong. We're actually going to show a clip of it in just a second. But I'm really curious in the chat, has anyone actually listened to this TED talk? Give me an emoji or hands up or any reaction if you guys have actually listened to this TED talk. Awesome. Trisha has, Maria, awesome. Multiple times. Yes, I've listened to it multiple times. Yeah. Well, if you haven't, I'm really excited to share this with you all. I'm only sharing a really small clip of it. And so maybe Al or Ryan, we can put the clip of the TEDx talk like in the chat. But I really, really appreciate him because he essentially, first off, talks about how philanthropy is the market of love. It is the market for those people from who there's no other market coming from, where the government and for profits aren't making space for them. And so he truly believes that if we live in a world that works for everyone with no one and nothing left out, then the nonprofit sector has to be a serious part of the conversation. And I think that's why we're all here today. That's why we all work for nonprofits or externally with nonprofits, is because we understand that without this sector, there would be millions of people not served. And so I'm going to go ahead and play this clip. It's going to give us some context into what we'll be talking about a little bit today. And then I'm going to be asking a poll as well of what you guys think too.
The second area of discrimination is advertising and marketing. So we tell the for-profit sector, spend on advertising until the last dollar no longer produces a penny of value. but we don't like to see our donations spent on advertising and charity. Our attitude is, well, look, if you can get the advertising donated, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm okay with that. But I don't want my donation spent on advertising. I want it to go to the needy. As if the money invested in advertising could not bring in dramatically greater sums of money to serve the needy. In the 1990s, my company created the long-distance AIDS ride bicycle journeys and 60-mile-long breast cancer 3-day walks. And over the course of 9 years, we had 182,000 ordinary heroes participate, and they raised a total of $581 million. They raised more money more quickly for these causes than any events in history, all based on the idea that people are weary of being asked to do the least they can possibly do. People are yearning to measure the full distance of their potential on behalf of the causes that they care about deeply. But they have to be asked. We got that many people to participate by buying full-page ads in the New York Times and the Boston Globe and primetime radio and TV advertising. Do you know how many people we would have gotten if we put up flyers in the laundromat? Charitable giving has remained stuck in the U.S. at 2% of GDP ever since we started measuring it in the 1970s. That's an important fact because it tells us that in 40 years, the nonprofit sector has not been able to wrestle any market share away from the for-profit sector. And if you think about it, how could one sector possibly take market share away from another sector if it isn't really allowed to market? And if we tell the consumer brands, you may advertise all the benefits of your product, but we tell charities, you cannot advertise all the good that you do, where do we think the consumer dollars are going to flow? The third area of discrimination is the taking of risk in pursuit of new ideas for generating revenue. So Disney can make a new $200 million movie that flops, and nobody calls the Attorney General. But you do a little $1 million community fundraiser for the poor, and it doesn't produce a 75% profit to the cause in the first 12 months, and your character's called into question. So nonprofits are really reluctant to attempt any brave, daring, giant-scale new fundraising endeavors for fear that if the thing fails, their reputations will be dragged through the mud. Well, you and I know when you prohibit failure, you kill innovation. If you kill innovation in fundraising, you can't raise more revenue. If you can't raise more revenue, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you can't possibly solve large social problems. The fourth area is time. So Amazon went for 6 years without returning any profit to investors, and people had patience. They knew that there was a long-term objective down the line of building market dominance. But if a nonprofit organization ever had a dream of building magnificent scale that required that for 6 years, no money was going to go to the needy, it was all going to be invested in building this scale, we would expect a crucifixion.
All right. We're actually going to go ahead and pull up a poll here. I'm just curious for everyone. He actually talks about five, so two additional areas of discrimination that the nonprofit sector gets a lot of pushback on. And for you all, out of these three areas that he just talked about, where do you guys get the most pushback on? And feel free to actually click right on the screen for the poll. And I'm just really curious, is it when you guys are asking for advertising and marketing budget, is there a lot of pushback from your donors? Is it just taking the risk? Is it time and patience to scale to actually see those results? And it's this TED Talk. Of course, we only showed a small snippet of it. And I really encourage everyone watching the rest of it. But this was 10 years ago, which is wild. 10 years. And yes, he was talking about print and TV ads and magazine ads, and the landscape has changed, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But I just want to give a little bit second for this poll. But this is really interesting, right? Where we'll actually take a look at one of the studies that we were able to do earlier this year and really see where this lines up with what you guys are doing. So I appreciate everyone. About 100 people voted, and it seems like it's pretty close between taking risk and advertising and marketing. And this is actually really good to know because I'm going to be talking a lot about how do we get leadership and board involved, and how do we help them see that marketing is crucial and that it is mission critical to our work. And so appreciate everyone responding to this. We'll go ahead and take it down. Great. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that talk and appreciate everyone responding to it. And this is a quote actually someone pulled out in the chat as well. But I really like the way he put it. You know, people are yearning to measure the full distance for causes that they care about, but they have to be asked. And I love this, right? He said, "How many people would have signed up for their race and for the walk if with flyers in the laundromat?" And I think we all know this, right? Is that there has to be a different way to go about it. And so when we kind of take a step back, I want to look at the state of nonprofit marketing through the acceleration report that we were able to do with over 1,200 nonprofits. Some of you guys actually might be in here. Post an emoji if you guys actually participated in this report earlier this year. But essentially, we had over 1,200 people give their insights from all different roles and all different revenue sizes on what's going on with you guys in marketing in the nonprofit sector. And what's cool is that a lot of these numbers actually represent who's on the talk today and who signed up for today. You know, it's not just EDs or board members, but people actually in marketing development, interns, communication teams, and all different revenue sizes. And there's a lot of trends that we found, and we'll have an opportunity for you guys to actually look at all of the data yourself. But some that I did want to bring up is despite this economic kind of weirdness that we're in right now, growth is still hopeful. Things are still moving forward. And a lot of you acknowledge that we just have room to grow. But what's cool is that average online donations grew just from 2022 to 2023. And we can see that in this chart here. We're in the blue, it's 2022, and we can see that blue being dispersed throughout. And the two facts that were incredible, and we'll actually dive into a bit more, is that investing into digital ads in the nonprofit space is up significantly. And budget and time are still one of the biggest challenges to growth, which we'll dive into. And so, first off, this number is pretty wild that you all are investing into digital ads 80% year over year. And we can see this chart, we're in blue, just last year, most of us were playing quite small, about 0 to 250. But a lot of us now are understanding that the more we put into marketing, the more we'll get out of it. And to be honest, $1,000 is really not that much in the for-profit sector. And if $1,000 is a lot for your nonprofit, I would really kind of consider that anything less, we actually might be wasting money because it's actually not enough for these platforms to understand and to adapt. And what's interesting about this fact is that a majority of us that are spending more don't think we're actually effectively executing it. And so post in the chat with emoji if you guys are actually really surprised by this number, because I definitely was. But it's really exciting. And this is where the nonprofit sector needs to be going. And the second one is I want to talk about the limited time and budget, right? I don't think this is overly shocking, but I actually want to talk about what goes into time and what goes into budget that forces us to stagnate this growth. Is first staff turnovers. In the nonprofit space, we need a bit higher, but what's really wild and kind of alarming is that it jumped drastically just from last year to this year, from 12% based on the report. And so that means that more of you guys have more on your plate. And I'm assuming a lot of you are overburdened. I like to say the nonprofit sector has multiple hat syndrome, where you guys wear so many hats trying to do so many things. You're trying to learn how to run Facebook ads or Google ads or TikTok ads while you're doing so many other things. And if you have multiple hat syndrome, let me know. And two, what sucks up a lot of our time is outdated tech. I think we can all agree that sometimes tech creates more problems than it does solutions. And then when we think about budget, we have to talk about the board because we know the board is involved into the budget. And when we have these constraints, it limits our growth. And so at the end of the day, we have to think about how we can strategically use our time and get leadership bought into our new initiatives. And that's one of the responses you guys had is just taking the risk. And so when we think about getting the board and the leadership bought in, at the end of the day, leadership, if you are here, I'm calling to you. We have to trust marketing, not just for nonprofits, but for profits have known this forever and they've been doing it forever. And, Dan talked about that in that talk. We don't blink twice when for profits market water, right? They just know they have to market water to sell water. Right. And so when we think about getting the board involved, I want us to think about ways to overcome that buy-in. And first and foremost, we need to build relationships. I'm not saying to go to all of the board members and take them all out to lunch and have personal relationships with them, but I recommend us really creating one strong relationship, whether that's the board president or the marketing chair, where that way when we bring these new initiative in, they're your advocate in that bigger meeting when there's a lot of opinions being shared. Two, we're going to have to educate, right? But by educating them, they will understand the importance of marketing with metrics. And to help educate them, involve them sooner. Bring them into that introduction call with that CRM or that agency or that contractor that you're thinking of pursuing, and get them involved sooner so they can ask their questions sooner. And of course, we just need to be transparent with the board. We have to tell them that results will take time, but innovation and risk is required if we do want to grow. And so I'll kind of pause here. I want to make sure you guys take screenshots of this, but I know leadership buy-in is just a big factor of this, and hopefully these simple steps can help you guys towards that. And so I'm really curious, before we go into the next section, we're going to have this poll pop up. I'm really curious, kind of based on the report, based on where you guys are at, what do you feel like is your biggest headache trying to advance your digital advertising? And again, feel free to just click right on the screen for the poll. But there's obviously a lot of factors in here. And I'm sure if there was an option, I'd love to do multiple, right? But I'm really curious as what's the top one. And so we'll just give it a second here. All right, I see budget in the chat. Content development. We'll talk a little bit about content development, how to expedite that. Yeah, budgeting, staff turnover. Yes, it is so tough. Yeah, knowing where to start, Brittany, that's definitely a hurdle, and something that we really pride ourselves on, looking at where you guys are at and where you can start. And you guys can always ask us, always even personally reach out to me, and I'd love to take a look. Yeah, budgeting, time, Angela. Yeah, such a long to-do list. ROI. Yeah. And we'll talk about ROI. Or, I mean, we can talk about it even now, too. I mean, ROI is so interesting with the board because it's more than just numbers, right? What is the ROI of you having time back to do certain things if you outsource? What is the ROI of you guys collecting more website traffic for potential donors and email lists? Not everything comes back to a one-to-one ratio, but ROI is more than just money, right? Yeah, expectations. Yeah, so true. Staying up to date, yes, is such a headache. Awesome. Interesting. So it's really close here. So first off is budgetary constraints, which makes total sense. And we'll kind of talk about why it's important to get that leadership buy-in a little bit more, and 7 steps you guys can take, whether you outsource or whether you do it internally. And then lack of expertise. I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm in the platforms every single day doing this work. That's why we have ad day where our specialists are talking about it. So it's definitely challenging. Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone posting in the chat here. Super, super helpful. We'll go ahead and pull this poll down. But before we go in, I definitely want to make sure you guys actually have this report. Again, about 1,200 of you, maybe you're on the call right now. I actually wasn't able to see the chat, but feel free to download it. We'll go ahead and post it in here. And when our next report comes out, we would love for your input. The more people that we have, the better. So we did this just earlier this year, and I'm sure we'll do one before the end of the year, if not next year. So please download your free copy here and learn about other areas in which nonprofits are struggling, and also areas in which there's room for growth. Awesome. All right. And so now I really want to talk about how do we adapt for the rest of the year, right? And so if we really think about it, the last 3 years has been a crazy roller coaster, but there was a lot of nonprofits that still hit their goals. And why? This is one of my favorite emojis. Why? Right? The reason is effective innovation. And effective innovation is really a critical component of modern nonprofit marketing and for profits alike. And I'm really trying to not separate us from the for profit space too much here because we need to start thinking and acting like them, which I'll talk about. But just like Dan said, when you prohibit failure, you kill innovation. And so we need to really think about how we can effectively innovate. And there's really two facts when we think about it. First, we just need to get in front of more supporters. We just have to. But we also have to start thinking and actually making decisions like successful nonprofits and for profit marketing departments. And I know leadership buy-in is a headache, and hopefully those steps were helpful in how to get them involved more. But these are really the two facts here. And at the end of the day, we get to pay to play. And this is a term that we advertising. We don't have to do anything, we get to. Because at the end of the day, our audiences are online. That's why you guys are here, right? And the way that we get out to more people is that we have to pay for their attention, just like for profits do for us, just like all of those products or programs or whatever is attacking you on all these different channels. It's because all of us spend majority of our time online. And so why ads? It's pretty simple here, right? It's great for just magnifying your brand and your mission really quickly. It's incredible for reaching new audiences. Yes, your current donors are so important and the way that we treat them is crucial, but we have to start going for new people that actually already care about your work. They just maybe don't know what you do. And how am I supposed to know what you guys do if I've never heard of you before? You're not coming up on a Google search or I'm not seeing you on my feeds. And thirdly, ads are incredible for donor engagement. How can we actually do gratitude campaigns towards people that have given before and show off the work that they've been able to contribute to? Also, it's incredible for multiple touch points, the rule of seven, which I'll talk about in a little bit. How can we get in front of more people more frequently? And then fifthly is just measurable results, right? What's great about ads is that we can actually track and see what we do here. But as you go through the sessions today, I want to keep it really simple. And just what is the recipe for effective ads? And feel free to take screenshots of this. It's just this simple, right? Is it story driven? Are we targeting audiences? Are we tracking? Are we retargeting them? And are we having a multi-channel approach? Are there CTAs on our site to actually get people to convert? Are we doing gratitude campaigns in addition to evergreen campaigns that are running year long, not just specific times? So when we do those specific campaigns, we have better results. Do we have an effective ad budget, which I'll talk about later today? And is the right person actually managing the ads? And so again, I'll kind of go back to this, and I just want to keep it really simple as we think about ads throughout the whole day. The recipe isn't complicated. And so before we dive into Thrive, I kind of want to pause here. And out of all of these points I just went over, I'm just curious about everyone's kind of one takeaway from this section from effective innovation. And yeah, just something that you guys want to take back home so we can just learn and obtain this. Awesome. Yeah, we have to pay for attention. Yeah, the recipe for ads. Awesome. Yeah, and if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Yeah, not being afraid to innovate. Awesome. And so when we think about adapting, right, we have to effectively innovate, but now how do we thrive? And I want to introduce you guys not to the 12 step program, but to the 7-step program. And so I designed the 7-step program really thinking about nonprofits that are thriving and nonprofits that are growing in the charity waters and the Obama foundations and the Save the Children's. What are they doing? And first, they're simplifying their marketing calendar. I actually got deep inspiration from the Charity Water talk, actually in February, when she was just talking about simplifying it. And I encourage all of us just to choose 4 campaigns a year, 1 a quarter, and maybe an additional one towards year end. But keep it really simple. Have an ad day the first quarter, have an awareness month in summer, have something in fall, and then have something in winter. Keep it really simple so we're not always chasing or always wondering what we're doing. 2, create a theme, a dollar amount, and ideally a match. Now, this doesn't have to be overcomplicated. It could be as simple as 10K for 10 kids. We could literally just make it up, and you don't need all of this impact metrics of exactly where that 10K is going. I know that can be overwhelming. You don't have to have a match. It's definitely a nice to have. But by creating a dollar amount and an initial impact, it makes us as donors feel like, or just me as a donor, feel like I'm actually trying to achieve something. And three, make it time bound. Make it a 7-day challenge or 48 hours or year end. And the reason why people give towards year end because there's incentive to give on the last 3 days, right? And then fourthly, we have to launch, test, and optimize where this is working well. And so I just really want to pause here because this is really important. And this is really the foundation of thriving nonprofits is that they just simplify their marketing calendar. Number two, they source innovative, passionate, and knowledgeable marketers. Now, Jim Collins famously said, people are not your most important asset, the right people are. The right people are. And I think we all have experienced this when we don't have the right person on board. And so the reality is staff turnover will continue. I don't think it's going anywhere, unfortunately. And like I said in the acceleration report, it's drastically growing just year over year. Number two, it's really important just to get the right people on the bus. And the right people actually may not be in your organization or hiring within your organization. It might be in an agency or contractor. And the reason why it might be outside and external is because it should be saving you time Googling, trying to how to maximize your Google ads or trying to figure out all this analytics. And it creates consistency if there is turnover. And to be honest, it produces better results because they're experts in this space. And so when we think about sourcing the right people, just think about outsourcing as an option, whether it's part time or an agency to us or even a contractor, because I guarantee all of you guys have a big to do list. And again, the right people on the bus may not be within your organization, and it might be cheaper to outsource long term. And what's cool is that a lot of you are already doing it. So this is from the report. Over 26% of nonprofits are already using agencies like Community Boost. A lot of you guys are using part-time staff or consultants or still using your full time employees in-house. So this is nothing new. And for-profits do this all the time because they know it's in their best interest to focus on what they specialize and let other people do the work too. And so when we think about number three, I want to talk about taking the minimum marketing dose. So this is not to call anyone out, but what I mean by the minimum marketing dose is the one email per month, the 3 posts per week, the simple update right after an event with no series. And I know all of you are trying, and I know all of you are aware that you're probably not doing enough. But there's really this sweet spot here. And it comes into the concept of the rule of 7 and the exposure effect. The more that we are exposed to brands, to nonprofits, to events, the more trust we actually have with it. And it makes sense when we think about it. All of these products and for profit companies are targeting us on multiple avenues on Facebook, Instagram, email, YouTube, display, podcast. And it's because they know that, yes, their podcast isn't probably the reason why I'm buying Athletic Greens because I'm listening to Huberman Lab, but they know that the more times I hear it and I see it, the more I'll trust and I will look into it. And I think we've all been influenced in buying a product or two or buying a program, whatever it is, by the exposure effect. And nonprofits right now, most of us are taking the minimum marketing dose. And give me an emoji chat if you guys feel like you could be doing more. And again, we're not alone. I think a lot of us understand that we need to be doing more. And so, number 4 is we just have to be diving into our core channels a lot more that are actually producing. I'll kind of talk about core channels a little bit too. But let's review what's working well. Has email always been strong? Great. Let's look into automations and series. Is Meta working great for you? Is SMS something that you guys have tested see great returns on, and just identifying why they're working and double down on them, invest more into these platforms. And while we do that, we need to track and, of course, scale. And so, what are your core versus emerging? So, first, I want to say that some organizations' core channels might be a little bit different than others, and that's perfectly fine. But maybe your organic social is working well. Maybe an emerging channel for you is actually SEO and something that you guys have a lot of traction from Google Ads and you want to get more organic. And here's a lot of the emerging channels, which I'll talk about in just a second. And so when we look at the other attributes of thriving nonprofits, they just test emerging channels quicker, but they have channel diversification. They don't just do one thing. And so here's a list of some things I think some of you are already doing, but some that I think get underemphasized are in orange: display and YouTube ads. These are so cheap, so cost effective, and are incredible for reaching audiences everywhere. YouTube is the number 2 visited site in the world after google.com. Why wouldn't we want to be there? SEO, organic traffic, is so important. I cannot underemphasize this because majority of people are going to Google asking their questions, looking for answers, and a lot of people skip Google ads. They go to organic, and a lot of nonprofits are actually doing SEO. 3, email automation. So many of you all are actually seeing traction in your email for a long time. Why wouldn't we want to go in there and segment audiences based on certain attributes, making sure that not just everyone gets a donation ask, that we actually tailor the message to who they are in our funnel, whether that's a volunteer or an event attendee or a ticket purchaser. And then number 4 is digital audio ads. This is pretty new in the nonprofit space, and we're super excited to have actually a couple of our partners testing it out. But Spotify and podcasts, millions of users every day listen to these platforms. And this is a great place where if you're doing radio, I highly recommend putting that budget and testing it into digital audio ads. And similar with radio, right? People aren't going to purchase because they heard it on the radio, but it's just another touch point. And so what's really cool is that we actually asked a lot of you in the acceleration report strategies that you did and that you were surprised by. And there's some incredible results here. And I just want to be honest again, is that it's not always going to look like this. We will fail, but we can't be scared of failure. And not all of these results are realistic for everyone. What works for someone with Google Ads may not make sense for another nonprofit. I think that's why connecting with someone, whether that's our team or a consultant or your internal team, trying to figure out what digital platforms make sense is super important. But what's awesome is that they all took the leap here and a lot of them got results. And so, number 6 is adopting innovative technologies. A lot of thriving nonprofits they have an agile marketing team. And so, AI is here, everyone. I do not blame you if you're really resistant. I was very resistant for a long time. I'm very much an iRobot person. I still don't really trust AI fully. So I am with you if there's a lot of hesitation here. But the reality is that it's here to stay and it can actually help you in your work. And so I really changed my perception about AI. Is like, how can I actually use this to do my job more effectively and really just use it to kickstart ideas, whether that is writing assistant or copy ideation. And definitely don't just copy and paste everything. Everything always needs a human voice. And please, please, please fact check before we put anything out there. But it's great for just like, hey, give me a couple different ideas about X, Y, and Z. There's all of these incredible images and design AI tools out there that can actually help you with that content creation, which I saw someone post about. And honestly, there's so much more. And the reality is that if you aren't going to use it, someone else will, right? It's just the matter of the fact. And so using the platform, I think chat GPT is the simplest one to use right now. There's so many platforms out there that I'm still discovering, but give me a shout out actually in the chat if anyone has actually used chat GPT in any part and maybe how you guys use it, just to give some examples of how you guys used it. Yeah, it's definitely making smoother. Yeah, a lot of us live on chat GPT already. Yeah, for emails, that's a great point, Amelia. Content ideation. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to hear people already using it. Yeah, target audience, social posts, yeah, brainstorming. Yeah, social posts, awesome. And the last point I want to leave you guys with, and I kind of pulled it all together, is really creating a process, because a process is better than the desire to be innovative. And so when we think about this process, we have to involve our leadership earlier. We have to get them in that introduction call, in those meetings that you're taking with agencies or consultants or part time. So when we take it to the board, there's less friction. We need cross department collaboration. So many development and marketing departments are still working separately, but your work crosses over. And three, we just need a reverse engineer of when we want the impact. Think about that campaign and think about 2 to 4 months out, because marketing takes time. It takes typically a month to get things up and running. Then it takes another month to get them live and gaining traction. So really think about where you guys want this impact and work about 3 months back. And number four, decide which channels you want to invest into and explore. And feel free to use our team to bounce off ideas or use Chat GPT, right? But the thing is, we have to decide what are your goals as a nonprofit and what channels make sense for your goals. And so I do just kind of, I know we're coming up on time here, so I might expedite through some of it, but I really encourage us to step into your supporters' journey, step in their shoes and reflect on your own buying and donating habits. We all know that we don't purchase or donate off the first Google search, or off me seeing a Facebook or Instagram ad or TikTok ad, whatever it is. I have to be followed up on. Everyone does. And so, how can we really step into their process and make it easier for them to give and support? And so to simplify it, feel free to take a screenshot here. I want us all really to step into this 7-step program. And so how I want to end this off before we go into Q&A is, again, how do we adapt and thrive, everyone? And I really want to think about the attributes of a thriving nonprofit in addition to the 7-step program. And it's interesting, over my 5 years here, I've talked to a lot of struggling nonprofits, a lot of nonprofits that have too much on their plate. They know they need to do more. But I also have talked to a lot of thriving nonprofits that know they need to invest in digital, take the leap, because they know their time is better spent everywhere else. And so when we look at the attributes there, they're agile. They're not scared to be imperfect. They have bold ideas. They're not scared of failure. They have trust from leadership. They know modern storytelling is crucial. They know that analytics is such an important part of reporting and getting that leadership buy-in. They know that their supporters are important, but they care more about the segmenting of those people to give them more custom ads. They just care about improving the user experience on their site and through their journey, not just cheap tech and making sure that we're saving money everywhere. They really care about engaging their community. And they also know that marketing where people's attention is at, like YouTube, like TikTok, like Meta, like Instagram, like audio ads, is important versus just staying within what they know. And they understand that relationships are everything. And at the end of the day, they understand that marketing is mission critical. It's not a nice to have, because if we're not able to market, we're not able to go out to people who might potentially love us. They simply just don't know about us. And so when we look at these two here, I encourage us to think about what side we want to be on. And if you guys want to be a thriving nonprofit, type in thrive into the chat. And so I know this can all be so overwhelming. And again, I want you guys to walk away with some steps. And if you guys want to adapt and thrive for the rest of 2023, think about the 7-step program. Take another screenshot here and go ahead and let us help, right? Because at the end of the day, the difference between achieving and missing your goals is investing into marketing. And coming back to Dan, people are yearning to support you, but they have to be asked. And that's what I have for you guys today. And we know that this journey is really overwhelming where to start. And so please connect with our team. Our job is to listen and understand your goals and your priorities and figure out what makes sense for you. Just free resources, just training makes sense, just potentially outsourcing us makes sense. And to be honest, it's completely up to you guys if you guys work with us or work with the contractor or keep it internally, but we would love to help you guys throughout this time. And so please take this time and go ahead and schedule. And what's great too is that we're giving $5 to first 100 people, because why not? We all need a caffeine boost later today. But I hope that session was really helpful. Please post in your chat your top takeaway, and we will go ahead and go into Q&A. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Janae. That was extremely helpful. Really love the TED Talk, plus your explanation into some of the emerging channels, emerging services that are out there. We do have time for Q&A, and I wanted to start with this first question. I think this is super important as well. Janae, you dived into it a bit, but how do we encourage the board and the CEO to allocate more funds for ads? Also, the importance of that investment.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's the number one problem that we're all still having is I'm kind of going back to the 7-step program. We have to just get them involved. And to get them involved, we need to make a closer relationship with one or two of them. We have to prioritize ideally the board president, and if not, the marketing chair, and making sure that they understand what's actually going on in the organization. So when we bring up these innovative ideas like investing into ads, they actually have your side. And by getting that person involved in your process, when you're evaluating an agency or evaluating a contractor or trying to get more money, the sooner that we involve them, the better, because they know and you know what the board is going to ask. And so once they're involved a little bit earlier, they can help advocate you in that bigger room.
And then this question from Kate actually directly correlates a bit. But if we were to get them more involved, but also just how do you suggest navigating moving maybe from a direct mail heavy strategy? And it's worked well for their organization in the past, but how do they get that more into like a digital focused strategy, make it
Yeah.
more digitally forward?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Kate. So a lot of you are doing direct mail, and a lot of it is not working. If it is, that's awesome. But this is actually a perfect place to pull your budget from, at least a little bit, and invest it into digital. So that way you're not asking for more money. You're actually using budget allocation in order to invest into it. And I actually wish I harped on budget allocation a little bit more, but if we think about marketing, we think about ads, it actually checks off a lot of boxes in our departments. It usually affects development, programming, events, everything like that. And there's actually budgets that we can pull, and that a lot of nonprofits that we work with pull from these different budgets to actually invest into digital versus asking for another lump sum.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think there comes a point where it becomes a law of diminishing returns, where returns won't be as heavy if you're constantly putting it into one, like putting all your eggs in one basket. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, with that, Lauren actually had a question. How do we go from buying digital audio ads just on Spotify, on like through podcasts?
Yeah, we actually have a whole session on this. So I highly recommend you guys actually join that. They'll actually go into literally how to set up your account, how it works, all of this stuff. So I'm not going to steal their spotlight. They know more about digital audio ads than I do. So I would definitely encourage you guys to go to that session. They will literally walk you through step by step of how to do it. It's essentially creating a free account. And then it's actually quite easy to create it, but there's a couple tools that obviously will make it a little bit easier to do so.
And then we have time for one more question. This is from Jesse. Can you give an example? What's an example of modern storytelling?
Yeah. I think a good example of modern storytelling is Charity Water. And I know we always bring up Charity Water, but they're clearly doing something right. And what they do right is that they actually focus on the person, the human. And a lot of times we actually don't even have to name this human. And we have found actually in a lot of our ads, and we'll talk about this in some of our sessions with Meta specifically, because it is so story driven. It's just focusing on the person and what that one person is doing, and how that one person was able to move into a home, or was able to adopt and save animals, was able to walk or run and raise money to help cancer research, and really focusing on the human experience as well. And also modern storytelling is also educational. I think that's the one cool thing about TikTok, and where we're kind of going is that it's actually very educational. It's how to, or giving insights into your organization, how it works, or kind of breaking down statistics and educating the broader audience about what you guys do in a very friendly and again educational way.